I remember that fall like it was yesterday, even though it's been 7 years now. It was late October 2018, and I was hauling ass through the Blue Ridge Mountains on a work trip for my old job, delivering parts for mining equipment up in West Virginia. The leaves were turning that deep red and orange, but the rain had been pounding down all day, turning the roads into slick ribbons of blacktop that snaked through the fog-shrouded hills. My truck's wipers were slapping back and forth like they were trying to keep time with the country station fading in and out on the radio. I'd planned to make it to Beckley by nightfall, but the storm had other ideas. Visibility dropped to nothing, and I started seeing those deer eyes glowing in the headlights more often than I liked. Pulled over at a rest stop to check the map, yeah, the paper kind, because cell service out there is a joke, and figured I'd push on a bit further. But by 9 p.m., I was bone tired, soaked from a quick dash to a gas station earlier, and the motels along the highway were either full or charging an arm and a leg for the leaf-peeping tourists. That's when I spotted the sign for the Pine View Motel, half hidden behind a curtain of overgrown kudzu vines clinging to the chain-link fence. It was off a side road, one of those forgotten exits that lead into the hollows where the mountains swallow everything. The neon vacancy light was flickering weakly, like it was on its last breath, buzzing faintly against the patter of rain on my windshield. I slowed down, peering through the glass. The place looked abandoned. Windows boarded up on some units, the office door hanging off its hinges, weeds cracking through the parking lot asphalt. But that sign was on, so maybe it was just run down, one of those mom-and-pop spots clinging to life. I needed a bed, dry sheets, anything to get out of the cab of my truck. Pulled in, tires crunching over gravel and broken glass, and killed the engine. The rain drummed on the roof as I sat there for a minute, listening to the wind whistle through the pines that crowded right up to the motel's edge. No other cars in the lot, no lights in the windows. Figured the owner might be asleep in the back, or maybe it was self-serve. Grabbed my duffel bag and flashlight, stepped out into the downpour. The office was dark, door creaking open with a push, no lock, just rust holding it shut. Inside, it smelled like mildew and old paper, the kind of musty rot that seeps into your clothes. Counter covered in dust, a bell sitting there untouched, guest book yellowed and warped from water damage. Called out a few times. Hello? Anybody here? But nothing but the echo off the paneled walls. Shined my light around. Calendars from the early 2000s, a rack of faded brochures for local attractions long since closed. This place hadn't seen a paying customer in years, but the power was on somewhere, judging by that sign. Maybe a squatter or something, but I wasn't about to drive back into the storm. Decided to check the rooms myself. Walked along the L-shaped building, rain soaking my jacket, trying doors. Most were locked tight, but room 7, end of the row, facing the woods, had its door ajar, like it had been left that way on purpose. Pushed it open with my boot, beam of light cutting through the gloom. The room was a time capsule of neglect. Faded floral wallpaper peeling in strips, a queen bed with a sagging mattress and threadbare comforter that might have been blue once, nightstand with a lamp missing its bulb, dresser drawers hanging open and empty, bathroom door cracked, revealing a sink stained with rust and a shower curtain mildewed black at the bottom. No TV, no phone, just the basics, frozen in decay. But it was dry, mostly, except for a drip from the ceiling into a bucket someone had placed there ages ago. I shook off the rain, tossed my bag on the bed, and peeled off my wet socks. Figured I'd crash here for the night, leave early, maybe slip a 20 under the office door if I saw anyone. It wasn't stealing. Places like this were forgotten for a reason. Locked the door, chain was intact, surprisingly, and tried to settle in. Pulled out a sandwich from my cooler, ate it sitting on the edge of the bed, listening to the storm rage outside. The wind howled through cracks in the window frame, and every so often a branch would scrape against the roof like nails on a chalkboard. I remember thinking how quiet it was otherwise. No traffic, no neighbors, just the endless rustle of the forest pressing in. By midnight, I'd turned off my flashlight and burrowed under the covers, clothes still on because the chill had seeped into the walls. Sleep came in fits, the kind where you're half aware of every creak and groan the building made. The rain eased up around 1 a.m., turning to a steady drip from the eaves. That's when I first heard it, soft like a murmur carried on the wind. At first, I thought it was the radio in my truck, maybe left on low, but no, I'd shut everything down. Sat up, ears straining. It was voices, 2 of them, women by the sound, talking low outside the window. Couldn't make out words, just the cadence, like they were arguing or consoling each other. I froze, heart picking up. Trespassers? Or maybe locals using the place for something shady. Slid out of bed quiet as I could, crept to the window and peeled back the curtain an inch. Nothing but wet gravel gleaming under the moon breaking through clouds, dark pines swaying, no figures, no flashlights.
The whispering stopped as soon as I looked, like they'd heard me move. Shook it off as imagination, the wind playing tricks through the trees. Lay back down, but sleep wouldn't come easy now. The room felt smaller, the shadows deeper. Around 2 a.m. it started again, this time closer, right against the glass. Whisper, whisper, whisper. Urgent now, like they were pressed up to the pane. I bolted upright, grabbed my flashlight, but didn't turn it on yet. Listened hard. Should have known. Where is she? Fragments like that, muffled but distinct. Women's voices, older, with that Appalachian drawl that stretches vowels like taffy. My skin prickled. I hadn't seen a soul since pulling in. Maybe echoes from somewhere else, carried funny by the hollow. But then it shifted, not outside anymore, but inside, behind the wall at the head of the bed, like they were in the next room. But there was no next room. This was the end unit. Pressed my ear to the wall, cold plaster against my cheek. Clearer now. You'll find us. No, listen. Back and forth, overlapping, fading in and out. I told myself it was pipes, old wiring humming, anything rational. But the voices grew insistent, volume rising just enough to catch full sentences. The rope's too short. She didn't mean it. My breath caught. That didn't sound like casual talk. Pulled away, paced the room in the dark, debating whether to grab my stuff and bolt. The rain had picked back up, thunder rumbling distant. Then, clear as a bell, one voice said my name, my full name, first and last, the way my mama used to call me when I was in trouble. Daniel Robert Hayes, you hear me? I hadn't told a living soul where I was staying, hadn't even checked in properly. No one knew I was here. Panic hit like a gut punch. I fumbled for my keys, bag, flashlight all at once. The whispering swelled, both voices now, calling my name over and over, moving through the walls like they were searching for a way in. Daniel, come here. Where'd she go, Daniel? I burst out the door, rain lashing my face, sprinted to the truck without looking back, locked myself in, engine roaring to life, headlights cutting swaths through the downpour. Drove a mile down the road before pulling over, shaking so bad I could barely grip the wheel. Slept fitfully in the cab, windows fogged, jumping at every shadow. Dawn came gray and slow, the storm breaking into mist. I needed coffee, answers, anything to shake the night off. Found a gas station a few miles up, one of those old school places with a diner attached, locals nursing mugs at the counter. Ordered black coffee, sat down, and after a bit struck up talk with an old-timer in overalls, face like weathered leather. He went still, eyes narrowing under bushy brows, set his cup down slow. You mean the old sister's place? Ain't nobody stayed there since, well, long time. Pushed him gentle, and he leaned in, voice low, like he didn't want the cook overhearing. Told him about the two sisters, Eleanor and May, who ran the motel back in the 70s. Close as could be, raised in the hollows, never married. One night in 76, May vanished, walked into the woods after an argument, they said, never came back. Eleanor searched for weeks, hollering her name through the trees till her voice gave out. Folks whispered she went mad with grief, started talking to walls, claiming May was still there, whispering clues. Then one morning, they found Eleanor in room 7, hanged from the ceiling fan with a bedsheet, too short to do the job quick, must have been agony. Place closed soon after, but the sign stayed on, powered by some old generator nobody shut off. Folks hear 'em still, he said, staring into his coffee, looking for each other, calling out names. If they said yours, well, best not go back. I nodded, paid up, and got the hell out of there. Drove the rest of the way to Beckley with the radio blasting to drown out the echoes in my head. Never told anyone, not my boss, not my ex-wife when I got home. But sometimes, on rainy nights, I swear I hear it again, that soft murmur at the edge of sleep, my name, drawn out long and searching. Makes me wonder if they found what they were looking for that night, or if they're still out there in those pines, whispering to anyone who will listen. I haven't driven that stretch of road since, and God help me, I don't think I ever will. The mountains keep their secrets, but sometimes they let them out just enough to remind you you're never truly alone.
It was our 10th anniversary in the fall of 2021, and money was tight that year. My wife Sarah and I had always talked about getting away somewhere quiet, just the two of us. No kids, no work calls, nothing but mountains and maybe a bottle of wine. We couldn't afford the fancy lodges up in Asheville, so I spent weeks scrolling through Airbnb listings for something cheap and off the beaten path. That's how I found the Mountain Rest Motel. The photos were grainy, taken with a phone that didn't quite capture how run down the place really was. But the price was right, $50 a night for a king room with a view of the woods. The host's description called it vintage charm and recently refreshed, though the reviews were mixed. Some folks complained about the musty smell or spotty Wi-Fi, but others said it was peaceful, private. One review stuck with me, feels like stepping back in time. I booked it for 3 nights, surprised Sarah with the confirmation, and we packed light, just a weekend bag each and the cooler with some groceries. Highway 221 winds through some of the loneliest stretches of western North Carolina, where the Blue Ridge rises steep and the valleys drop away into shadow. We left after I got off work on Friday, driving into the evening with the windows down, country music low on the radio. Sarah leaned her head against the door, hair whipping in the wind, smiling in that tired but content way she does when we're finally alone together. The sun dipped behind the ridges just as we turned onto the gravel drive for the motel. The sign was faded, letters half missing, Mountain Rest Mo, but a newish LED open light glowed below it. The building was a single-story strip of 12 rooms, painted that old turquoise that was popular in the 70s, now chipped and peeling. A cracked concrete walkway ran the length of it, weeds pushing through like they were trying to reclaim the place. Behind the motel, the woods came right up to the back doors, thick with hemlock and rhododendron. There was an empty pool out front, chain-link fence sagging, filled with dead leaves and water rain the color of tea. The owner met us at the office, a guy in his late 30s named Travis, wearing a flannel shirt and a baseball cap pulled low. He seemed nervous, kept checking his phone while handing over the old-fashioned metal key for room 12. End unit, he said. Biggest window, best view of the trees. He mentioned the power could flicker sometimes, and if we needed anything to text him, he lived 20 minutes away. No mention of the place being mostly abandoned, no mention of why the pool was dry, and the other 11 doors had padlocks on them. We didn't ask. We were just glad to be there, away from everything. Room 12 was bigger than I expected, though that wasn't saying much. The carpet was dark green shag, worn thin in paths from the door to the bed and bathroom. Paneled walls, a dresser with a mirror that had black spots creeping in from the edges, and a window that stretched almost floor to ceiling, looking out onto the dense forest. The bed was made up fresh. Sarah noticed that right away, said it smelled like new sheets at least. We unpacked, opened the wine, sat on the edge of the bed talking about the early days, laughing about how broke we were when we got married. Outside, the crickets started up, loud and steady, and the temperature dropped quick once the sun was gone. We made love slow and quiet, like we were afraid of waking something, then fell asleep tangled up under the heavy quilt. I woke up first, sometime after midnight, to the sound of running. Little feet, quick and light, pattering down the hallway outside our door, back and forth, like a child playing tag with himself. I lay there listening, figuring maybe Travis had kids staying over or something, though he hadn't mentioned family. The footsteps stopped right outside our door, paused, then started again, faster this time, retreating toward the office end. Sarah stirred beside me. "You hear that?" she whispered. I nodded in the dark. We waited, but it didn't come back. I got up, went to the door, and cracked it open. The hallway was lit by a single bulb at the far end, buzzing faintly. Empty. No doors open, no shadows moving, just the smell of damp concrete and old paint. Closed the door, chained it again, and climbed back into bed. Sarah pressed against me, said it was probably a raccoon on the roof or something. We both knew it didn't sound like that, but we let it go. Anniversary weekend, right? No point in spooking ourselves. The second time was around 2 a.m. Same thing. Quick little socks on linoleum footsteps racing past our door, then slowing, then racing back. This time Sarah sat up with me. We listened together, hearts beating a little faster. The running stopped again right outside. I waited a full minute before easing the door open. Nothing. Hallway empty. Same dim light, same silence. But the air felt heavier, colder near the threshold. Sarah pulled me back inside. "Maybe it's the pipe settling," she said, but her voice was thin. We left the bathroom light on after that, a weak glow through the cracked door, and tried to sleep. I don't know exactly when I woke up the third time. The room was pitch black except for the faint outline of the window, moonlight filtering through the trees. Something had changed. The air felt still, too still, like the crickets had all stopped at once. I opened my eyes and saw him, a little boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, standing at the foot of the bed, barefoot, wearing pale pajamas that looked like they came from another era, button up top with piping on the collar, shorts that ended above the knee. His skin was white, almost glowing in the dark, and his hair was dark and neatly combed. He wasn't moving, just staring at us with big, dark eyes. No expression on his face, not fear, not sadness, just watching. Sarah was still asleep beside me, breathing slow. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My chest felt tight, like the air had thickened. The boy lifted one arm slowly and pointed toward the closet door on the far wall. His fingers stayed there, steady, accusing. Then, as quietly as he'd appeared, he was gone. No fade, no sound, just not there anymore. I lay frozen for what felt like hours, staring at the spot where he'd been. When I finally sat up, my back was slick with sweat despite the chill. Sarah woke then, felt me shaking. I told her what I'd seen. She didn't laugh, didn't call me crazy, just held my hand tight and said we should check out in the morning.
We didn't sleep after that. Sat up with the lamp on, talking in whispers about leaving early, about how maybe we'd imagined it. But we both knew better. Dawn came slow, gray light seeping through the big window. We packed in silence, moving quick. Before we left the room, Sarah opened the closet to grab her shoes from the shelf. That's when we saw it. A small rusted toy truck, metal, the kind with a dump bed, sitting on the floor in the back corner like it had been waiting. Paint chipped red, wheels seized with age. Neither of us had put it there. We hadn't even opened that closet before. I carried it out to the office, knuckles white around it. Travis was there, sipping coffee from a thermos, looking like he hadn't slept much either. I set the truck on the counter between us. Found this in our closet, I said. His face went pale. He stared at it a long time before speaking. Then he told us about the boy, Timothy, 8 years old, drowned in the pool back in July 1984. Family was staying in room 12 for a summer vacation. Mother turned away for a minute. Timothy slipped under. They pulled him out too late. The truck was his favorite toy. His daddy had bought it for him that trip. After the funeral, the mother came back alone every year around the anniversary, stayed in room 12, left the truck in the closet, said he was looking for it, that he couldn't rest without it. Travis bought the place 5 years ago, planning to fix it up, but every time he tried to renovate room 12, things went wrong. Tools missing, power cutting out, that same running in the halls at night. He finally stopped trying, just cleaned the room, changed the sheets, and rented it out cheap to folks who didn't know better. Sarah asked if the mother still came. Travis shook his head. She passed 2 years ago, but I think he's still waiting. We left the truck on the counter, didn't ask for our money back, just got in the car and drove, windows down even though it was cold, trying to air out the memory. We didn't talk much on the way home. Anniversary felt ruined, but it was more than that. It was the weight of knowing that little boy was still there, running those halls in his sock feet, pointing at that closet every year, hoping someone would find what he lost. Sometimes late at night, I hear it in my head, that quick patter of small feet, going past a door that isn't there. Makes me wonder if he ever got his truck back, or if he's still searching, still pointing. The mountains hold on to things longer than we do. Grief like that doesn't fade easy. And room 12 at the Mountain Rest Motel, it's still waiting, I reckon, for someone to finally bring him home.
Back in 2016, I was running deliveries for a restaurant supply company out of Roanoke. Everything from industrial mixers to cases of frozen fries, up and down the hollers in Western Virginia and into Southwest West Virginia. Long days on the road, just me and the hum of the box truck, winding through those narrow mountain passes where the fog sits low and the cell signal dies for miles. I liked the work. It was quiet, gave me time to think. That particular run in early November had me pushing later than usual. A big order for a diner in Grundy got delayed at the warehouse, and by the time I hit the road again, the sky had turned that bruised purple color that means serious rain is coming. Sure enough, about halfway up Route 460, the storm hit hard. Sheets of water slamming the windshield, wipers going full speed and still barely keeping up. Thunder rolling through the valleys like artillery. Every motel I passed had its no vacancy sign lit. Leaf season stragglers and folks fleeing the weather, I guess. I kept driving, figuring something would open up, but by 10 p.m. I was fighting to keep my eyes open and the truck on the road. That's when I saw the faded sign for the Hollow Pine Motor Inn, half swallowed by vines and leaning like it might topple any day. The neon sign was dark, except for a weak glow from the office window, and the parking lot was empty. No cars, no lights in any of the rooms. I pulled in anyway, tires crunching over wet gravel and pine needles. Figured even if it was closed, I could sleep in the cab, but I'd rather have a bed if there was any chance. Killed the engine and sat there a minute listening to the rain drum on the roof and the wind rattling the branches overhead. The building was one of those long, low, mid-century motels, 20 rooms maybe, all facing the lot, with a breezeway leading to the office at the far end. Paint peeled in long strips, windows boarded on a few units, but the roof looked solid enough. I grabbed my overnight bag and a flashlight, pulled my hood up, and made a dash for the office. Door was unlocked, which surprised me. Inside it smelled like old cigarette smoke trapped in carpet and wet plaster. The lobby was small, counter with a dusty bell, a rack of yellowed maps, a couple of plastic chairs facing a TV that hadn't worked in decades. No one behind the desk, no register open, just a faint hum from an old fridge in the corner. I rang the bell a few times, called out, "Hello, anybody here?" but only got my own echo back. Power was on though, the overhead fluorescent flickered weakly, and that fridge was running. I waited 5 minutes, 10, getting colder and wetter. Finally figured the place must be abandoned, but someone forgot to lock up or shut off the electric. I wasn't proud of it, but I'd slept in worse spots on the road. Walked the breezeway checking doors. Most were padlocked from the outside or swollen shut, but room 5, about midway down, gave when I tried to handle.
Door creaked open into darkness. I swept the flashlight around. Bed with a bare mattress, nightstand, dresser missing drawers, bathroom with no curtain. Mildew smell strong, but the floor was dry and the window intact. Good enough. I propped the door shut with a chair, spread my sleeping bag on the mattress, and was out cold within minutes. The rain on the tin roof was loud but steady, like white noise, and exhaustion took me quick. I don't know how long I slept, maybe 3 or 4 hours, before the ringing started. Old-fashioned phone bell, the kind with the metal hammers, clear and insistent, coming from the direction of the office. I came awake slow, confused, thinking maybe I dreamed it, but there it was again. Burring, burring, pause, burring, burring. Steady, like someone was calling and letting it ring out. I sat up, heart already picking up speed. Nobody should be here. No power to the phone lines as far as I knew. The place had been dark and empty when I pulled in. I grabbed my flashlight but didn't turn it on yet, just listened. The ringing kept going, patient, like it had all night. Curiosity got the better of me. I've always been the type who has to know. Slipped on my boots, eased the chair away from the door, and stepped into the breezeway. Rain had slowed to a steady drizzle, dripping from the eaves. The air was cold enough to see my breath. I walked quiet toward the office, floorboards creaking under my weight, until I could see through the glass door into the lobby. There was a woman standing at the counter in a red wool coat, the bright kind that stands out even in dim light. Dark hair pinned up, back to me, one gloved hand resting on the countertop while the other held the receiver to her ear. Across from her, behind the desk, was the shape of a man in a uniform shirt, sleeves rolled, tie loose, leaning forward like he was taking her information. The phone on the desk was ringing, but she was already talking into the one in her hand. I couldn't hear words through the glass, just the low murmur of voices, and that bell still going unanswered on his end. I stood frozen in the shadows of the breezeway, telling myself maybe squatters, maybe kids messing around, but something felt wrong. The overhead light flickered once, twice, and in that stutter I saw the dust thick on every surface, the cobwebs in the corners, yet there they were, clear as day, having a conversation like it was 1965, and the place was still open for business. Then she turned, slowly, like she'd known I was there all along. Face pale, lipstick dark, eyes fixed right on me through the glass. She lowered the receiver, set it back in the cradle gentle, and the ringing stopped dead. The man behind the desk didn't move, didn't look up, just stayed leaned forward, frozen. She spoke, and I heard it clear even through the door, voice calm, but carrying that mountain accent that lingers on certain words. "You're in my room." Not angry, not loud, just stating a fact, like she was reminding me of something I'd forgotten. My stomach dropped. I backed up a step, then another, not wanting to turn my back on her. She didn't move from the counter, just watched me with those steady eyes. I bolted then, back down the breezeway, boots slipping on the wet concrete, slammed into room 5 and shoved the chair under the knob again. Sat on the edge of the mattress, breathing hard, flashlight in my lap, listening for footsteps that never came. The rest of the night I stayed awake, eyes on the door, every creak of the building sounding like someone testing the handle. Dawn came gray and slow, mist hanging low in the pines. I waited until full light before stepping out. The lobby door was still ajar from however she'd gotten in. I went in cautious, flashlight off now. Everything was exactly as I remembered from the night before. Dust thick enough to write your name in, cobwebs undisturbed, except...
That year, 2020, everything felt like it was coming apart at the seams. The world had shut down, restaurants boarded up, highways empty, folks locked inside, staring at the same four walls. I couldn't take it anymore. My job had gone remote, but the apartment in Knoxville was closing in on me, every day bleeding into the next. So I did what my granddaddy used to do when life got heavy. I packed a bag, threw a cooler in the back of my Jeep, and headed for the mountains. No real plan, just west into the Smokies, following back roads where the cell signal died and the trees crowded close. Figured I'd find a campground, maybe a cheap cabin, anything to breathe air but didn't feel recycled. But the campgrounds were closed, signs chained across the entrances, and every lodge or rental I passed had no vacancy or simply dark windows. Pandemic rules, I guess. By late afternoon, I was deep in the ridges along the Tennessee-North Carolina line, sun dropping fast behind the peaks, temperature falling with it. I hadn't seen another car in hours. That's when I came across the Ridgecrest Motel. It sat off a narrow state road that twisted through a hollow so deep the daylight barely reached the pavement. The sign was half collapsed, letters faded to ghosts. Ridgecrest, Mo, with a single string of Christmas lights still plugged in somehow, blinking weak red and green against the gray dusk. The building was long and low, maybe 15 units, built back in the 50s when folks still took Sunday drives through the mountains. Parking lot cracked and overgrown with kudzu, a handful of windows boarded, others staring empty. But a couple doors on the far end stood ajar, like someone had left in a hurry and never turned back. I pulled in slow, tires popping gravel, and killed the engine. Sat there a minute listening to the tick of cooling metal and the wind moving through the laurels that pressed against the building. No other vehicles, no lights except those tired Christmas bulbs. I needed a place to lay my head, and pride be damned, this would do. I grabbed my flashlight and bag, walked the row of doors. Most were locked or swollen shut, but room 3 opened easy, hinges groaning like they hadn't moved in years. Inside smelled of damp plaster and old wood, the kind of scent that settles into your clothes and stays. The room was small, bed with a thin mattress, nightstand missing a leg and propped on bricks, dresser scarred by cigarettes, and a big mirror bolted above it. The glass was cracked in a long diagonal from top corner to bottom, spider webbing out like a frozen lightning bolt, but still holding together. Dust lay thick everywhere except the bed, where someone had swept it clean once upon a time. Window was intact, curtains moth-eaten but whole. Bathroom had running water, cold, rusty at first, then clear. Good enough. I brought in my cooler, spread my sleeping bag on the mattress, and ate a cold sandwich sitting on the edge of the bed, flashlight propped to light the room. Outside, night came quick the way it does in the hollows. No slow twilight, just a flip of the switch. Crickets started up, then tree frogs, loud and overlapping. I tried the light switch, nothing. Power long gone. But the quiet was what I'd come for, so I didn't mind. I lay back fully clothed, boots off, staring at the dark ceiling and listening to the mountains settle around me. Sleep came in fits. The mattress was lumpy, the air cold enough that my breath showed. I drift off, then snap awake at some small sound, a branch scraping the roof, water dripping in the bathroom pipes. Around midnight, I rolled over and caught movement in the mirror across the room. Just a flicker at the edge of my vision, like someone shifting weight behind me. I froze, eyes adjusting to the faint moonlight coming through the curtains. Nothing, just my own reflection, distorted by the crack and the empty room behind. Told myself it was tiredness playing tricks, the way shapes twist when you're half dreaming. Closed my eyes again, but it happened twice more, quick, subtle, a shadow where no shadow should be. Each time I looked direct, the mirror showed only me, alone, breathing slow. By the third time I was wide awake, heart thumping steady. I sat up slow, reached for the flashlight but didn't turn it on yet, stared at the glass. The crack split my face in two, made my eyes look wrong. Then I saw it clear, a shadow standing just over my left shoulder, tall, broad, wearing overalls faded almost white. An older man, beard gray and unkempt, skin weathered like bark. He wasn't fully solid, more like heat haze on a summer road, but unmistakable. I felt the hairs on my neck rise. Turned my head fast, beam of the flashlight cutting the room. Empty. Bed, dresser, open bathroom door, nothing. Swung the light back to the mirror. He was still there, same spot, staring straight ahead. At me, though his eyes were dark hollows. He lifted one hand slow, palm up, fingers curling once in a beckoning motion. Come here, clear as if he'd spoken aloud. I scrambled off the bed, back against the wall, flashlight shaking in my grip. The room was cold now, colder than outside, breath pluming thick. I didn't scream, didn't have it in me, just stood there watching him watch me. He didn't move again, just held that hand out, patient, waiting. I grabbed the extra blanket from the foot of the bed, walked sideways, keeping him in sight, and threw it over the mirror. The glass thudded soft under the fabric. I backed to the door, hand on the knob, ready to bolt to the Jeep. But the night outside felt bigger, darker. I chained the door instead,
dragged the dresser in front of it, though it barely budged, and sat on the bed with the flashlight pointed at the covered mirror till dawn started graying the curtains. Didn't sleep. Didn't hear another sound, except my own breathing and the occasional drip in the sink. Morning came slow and foggy. I pulled the blanket down careful, like uncovering something wounded. The mirror was clean, no dust, no fingerprints, and the long crack was gone. Glass smooth and whole, reflecting the room perfect, almost new. My stomach turned. I packed in a hurry, didn't even drink the coffee I'd planned, just threw everything in the Jeep and drove down the hollow to the nearest town, a little place called Walnut Gap, one stoplight and a couple stores. Found an old boy sitting on a bench outside the hardware store, whittling a stick. Bought a coffee from the diner next door, came back, and asked about the Ridgecrest. He stopped whittling, looked me over slow. Told me the handyman's name was Clarence. Worked there 30 years, lived in a trailer out back, fixed what needed fixing and kept to himself. One spring day in '94, he was up in the crawl space of room 3 patching a roof leak after heavy rains. Ceiling gave way. Rotted joists nobody knew were bad. He fell straight through, landed on the dresser, mirror shattering under him. Broke his neck instant. They found him hours later when he didn't show for supper. Blood on the glass, pieces everywhere. Owner cleaned it up best he could, glued the frame back, but the crack stayed. Place started failing after that. Hard to rent rooms where a man died ugly. Closed for good a few years later. Folks say Clarence never left, that he's still tending the place in his way, watching from that mirror, waiting for someone to notice he's gone. I nodded, thanked him, and got back on the road. Drove all day to put miles between me and that hollow. But sometimes when I'm alone in a room with a big mirror, I catch myself checking the reflection longer than I should, looking for movement behind me, looking for that slow hand waving me closer. I never spend the night in old motels anymore, and I never uncovered that mirror again. But I still wonder if he's standing there, patient as ever, keeping watch over a room nobody rents. The mountains take care of their own, even the ones who fall through. Some just keep waiting for help that never came.
It was supposed to be a simple fishing trip, just like the ones we'd taken every spring since college. Me, Jake, Tyler, and Chris. 4 guys from Charlotte who needed a long weekend away from desks and kids and wives, who understood we weren't running from them, just towards something quieter. We'd booked a little cabin outside Cherokee, North Carolina, right on the Raven Fork, the kind of place with a tin roof and a porch that hung over the water. But 2019 had other plans. We arrived Friday evening in May to find the river swollen from days of rain, brown and angry, lapping at the stilts under the cabin. By nightfall, it was inside, 2 feet of cold mountain water on the first floor, ruining everything. The owner apologized over the phone, said he'd refund us, but there wasn't another rental available within 50 miles. Everything was booked or flooded. We sat in our trucks with the engines running, headlights cutting through the downpour, trying to figure out where 4 grown men in their coolers were going to sleep. That's when Tyler remembered seeing a sign a few miles back for the Starlight Motel. He'd laughed at it on the drive-in, big faded star on the marquee, half the bulbs burned out, looking like something from an old postcard. We figured even if it was rough, it had to have roofs and beds. Drove back slow on the slick roads, wipers stumping, and pulled into the lot around 10. The place was 2 stories, built in that U-shape around a courtyard with a drained swimming pool full of pine needles and stagnant water. Windows dark, parking lot empty, except for a rusted vending machine leaning against the office wall. But the office light was on, a weak yellow glow behind dusty glass, and a hand-lettered sign on the door read, "Rooms available, cash only." We knocked, and an old woman let us in. Gray hair pulled tight, wearing a housecoat, didn't ask questions. Took $80 for 3 connecting rooms on the second floor, handed over real metal keys on plastic tags, and told us the ice machine didn't work, but the vending machine sometimes did if you kicked it right. We thanked her, hauled our wet gear up the outside stairs, and claimed rooms 6, 7, and 8. The rooms smelled like old smoke and lemon cleaner that had given up years ago. Carpet was dark and patterned to hide stains. Beds sagged in the middle, but the sheets looked clean enough. We pushed the doors between the rooms open so we could move freely, set up coolers in the middle room, cracked beers, and tried to salvage the night. Told stories, played cards on one of the beds, laughed about how at least we weren't sleeping in the trucks. The rain kept coming, steady on the roof, wind rattling the loose panes in the windows. By midnight, we were winding down. Jake and Chris crashed in room 6, Tyler took the far bed in 8, and I stretched out in 7, closest to the bathroom.
I remember lying there listening to the storm, feeling the buzz wear off, thinking how the mountains always feel older at night, like they're remembering things we've forgotten. I was almost asleep when the knocking started. Slow, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. Then 3 more. Coming from the door to room 8, the one that opened onto the upstairs walkway. I figured Tyler had locked himself out going for ice or something, but when I sat up, he was dead asleep across the room. The knocks came again, same rhythm, patient. I got up, walked through the connecting doors, and put my ear to the wood. Nothing but rain outside. Waited. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. 3 more. Not frantic, not angry, just insistent, like someone who knows you're in there and isn't going to leave. I looked through the peephole, fisheye view of the empty walkway, puddles reflecting the one bulb that still worked over the stairs. No one. Opened the door a crack, chain still on. Empty. Wind gusting, rain blowing sideways. Closed it quiet, heart beating a little faster, and went back to bed telling myself it was the building settling, or maybe a branch hitting the roof somewhere. But it didn't stop. 10 minutes later, the same knocks, now on the door to room 7, my room. Same pattern, same volume. I froze under the covers, listening. Tyler stirred, mumbled something, but didn't wake fully. The knocks moved again, to room 6 this time. That got Jacob. He came through the door in his boxers, eyes wide. "You hearing that?" he whispered. We woke the others. Stood in the middle room together, lights off now, listening as the knocking worked its way back down the row. 8, then 7, then 6. 3 measured knocks on each door. Pause. 3 more. Like whoever it was knew exactly which rooms were occupied and was checking them one by one. We didn't answer, didn't dare. Just stood there in the dark, 4 grown men breathing shallow, watching the doors. The knocking went on for hours, slow circuit after circuit, never speeding up, never stopping longer than a minute. Sometimes it would skip a door, sometimes linger on one longer, but it always came back. The sound was muffled by the rain, but clear enough. Solid, real, knuckles on wood. Around 3 a.m., we couldn't take it anymore. We dragged mattresses into room 7, barricaded ourselves in the middle, doors to the walkway locked and chained, connecting doors open so we could see each other. Sat on the floor with our backs to the walls, flashlights off, 1 weak lamp glowing. Didn't talk much, just listened. The knocking kept going outside, moving along the walkway, patient as death. Every so often it would stop right outside our door. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more, close enough that we could hear the faint creak of the floorboards under weight. Jake whispered that maybe it was kids from town messing with us, but we all knew no kid would stay out in that storm all night for a prank. Tyler suggested calling the office, but none of us wanted to move, and besides, our phones barely had signal. We just waited, the hours stretching thin, rain drumming, knocking continuing like a heartbeat we couldn't stop. It finally quit just before dawn. No fading, no last flurry, just stopped, like someone had finally given up or been called away. We waited another half hour, until gray lights started showing around the curtains. Then we packed fast, didn't even shower, just hauled everything downstairs and tossed it in the trucks. The old woman was in the office again, drinking coffee from a stained mug. Didn't ask how we slept, just took the keys and gave Tyler his change without a word. We were almost to the highway when Chris said we should go back and look, make sure we hadn't imagined it. I don't know why we listened to him, maybe we needed proof it was real. We climbed the stairs again in daylight, boots loud on the wet concrete. Every door on the 2nd floor, 12 rooms in a row, had scratches around the knobs. Deep ones, fresh gouges in the old paint, pale wood showing through like scars. Some were clustered tight, frantic, others long single marks like fingernails dragged slow. The doors to 6, 7, and 8 were the worst, paint shredded in places, splinters hanging. We stood there staring, nobody saying much. The scratches looked like they'd been made by someone trying desperately to get in, over and over, night after night maybe, but they were fresh, sharp edges, no weathering. Whatever made them had done it last night. Jake asked the woman on her way out. She didn't look surprised, just sighed and told us about the traveling salesman back in 62, heart attack in room 12, late at night, storm worse than ours. He managed to get out into the hall, went door to door begging for help, knocking, scratching when his strength gave out. But it was off-season, place mostly empty, and the few guests either slept through it or figured it was a drunk and didn't open up. Found him at sunrise slumped against the door to room 6, fingernails broken, hands bloody from trying. Ever since, on bad nights, folks hear him doing his rounds again, checking every door, hoping this time someone will let him in. We drove home in silence mostly, windows down to air out the damp. Haven't been back to Cherokee since, haven't planned another fishing trip either. Sometimes when I'm up late and it's raining hard, I swear I hear it. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more. Faint, like it's coming from another room down the hall. I never answer, just lie there listening until it moves on. Makes me wonder if he's still walking those upstairs hallways at the starlight, still hoping, still checking. And I wonder what would have happened if one of us had opened the door that night. The mountains keep their lonely ones close, I reckon. Some doors are better left shut.
It was the summer of 2022 when everything went wrong on what was supposed to be a simple weekend getaway. My girlfriend Emily and I had been together about 2 years, and we'd been talking about taking a drive through the mountains, just the two of us. No phones if we could help it, no schedule. We left Richmond early on a Saturday morning, windows down, her playlist of old country and folk songs filling the car. The plan was loose: wind through the Shenandoah Valley, maybe cross into West Virginia, find a little bed and breakfast or a cabin somewhere quiet. Emily loved those old back roads, the ones that dip into hollows where the sun barely reaches and the trees lean over like they're listening. We packed light: overnight bag, cooler with sandwiches and beer, a blanket for picnics. My old Civic had been running fine, but I should have known better than to trust it on those steep grades. We were somewhere west of Staunton, deep in the George Washington National Forest, when the car started coughing. Smoke curled from under the hood, the temperature gauge spiked, and I coasted to the shoulder just as the engine died with a final shudder. No cell service, of course. Those mountains swallow signals whole. We sat there a minute, hazard lights blinking, listening to the tick of cooling metal and the wind in the pines. Emily tried to stay positive, said it was an adventure, but I could hear the worry underneath. It was late afternoon, sun already slipping behind the ridges, and the road was empty. We popped the hood. Radiator hose split clean open, coolant steaming on the asphalt. No fixing that without tools or parts. I figured we'd wait for a passing car, but an hour went by and nothing came. The air cooled fast, mist rising from the valley below. We couldn't stay in the car all night. Temperatures drop quick up there, even in summer. That's when we spotted the faded sign half a mile back down the road: Laurel Valley Motor Cart, the letters peeling but still legible. We'd passed it without noticing. One of those old roadside motels from the 50s or 60s, the kind with a long row of rooms and a neon sign that probably hadn't worked in decades. Figured even if it was closed, maybe there'd be a landline in the office, or at worst we could break into a room for shelter. We grabbed our bags in the cooler, locked the car, and walked back through the dusk. The motel sat in a flat clearing carved out of the hillside, surrounded by thick woods that came right up to the back wall. The parking lot was cracked and empty, weeds pushing through like fingers. The office door was boarded over, windows dark, but several of the room doors hung slightly open, swaying in the breeze. No cars, no lights, no sign of life. The place had that heavy stillness abandoned buildings get, like it's holding its breath. We checked a few rooms. Most smelled worse than the last. Mattresses gone or rotted, floors littered with leaves blown in over the years. Room 9 was on the very end, farthest from the road, and it was the cleanest by comparison. Door creaked wide when I pushed it, hinges rusty but intact. Inside was the usual: paneled walls, faded green carpet, a double bed with a bare mattress that looked like it hadn't been slept on in forever, nightstand, dresser, and an old console TV the size of a small refrigerator, its screen gray with dust. Bathroom had a cracked mirror and a shower that dripped slow, but the windows were full, the door locked from inside, and it was dry. Emily wrinkled her nose at the smell, mildew heavy, layered with decades of cigarette smoke baked into everything, but she said it would do for one night. We dragged the mattress back onto the frame, spread our blanket over it, and set the cooler on the dresser. Lit a couple candles we brought for ambiance, ate cold ham sandwiches sitting cross-legged on the bed, trying to laugh it off. Told ourselves a tow truck would come in the morning, that it was just a story we'd tell later. Night fell hard outside, no moon visible through the clouds, just the black shapes of trees pressing against the window. Crickets loud at first, then fading as the temperature dropped. We lay down fully clothed, sharing body heat under the blanket, talking quiet about nothing important. Plans for when we got home, maybe fixing the car for good this time. Emily fell asleep first, her breathing slow and even against my shoulder. I stayed awake longer, staring at the ceiling cracks that looked like veins, listening to the drip in the bathroom and the occasional creak of the building settling. The room felt smaller as the hours passed, the air thicker. I don't know exactly when I dozed off, but I woke sudden around 1 a.m. to the sound of static. Low at first, then louder. Harsh white noise filling the room. The TV had turned on by itself. Screen glowing blue-white, snow flickering, volume climbing. No remote, no power cord even plugged in. I checked earlier, the outlet behind it was dead. Paint over the prongs like it hadn't been used in years. Emily jolted awake beside me, grabbing my arm. We both stared as the static settled into a picture. Grainy black and white, vertical hold rolling once before locking in. An old western, cowboys on horseback, saloon doors swinging, tinny piano music under the dialogue. Looked like something from the early days of television. Men in big hats talking stiff. We sat up slow, confused, hearts already beating faster. I got off the bed, approached the set careful, looking for any sign it was really on. Warmth from the tubes, light from the vents. Nothing, cold as the room, but the picture stayed sharp, sound clear. Then the channel changed, or something did. The western cut to static again, brief. Then a new image, a fixed camera angle from the far corner of the room, up near the ceiling, looking down at the bed.
Clear as day, it showed us, me and Emily, sitting exactly where we were, staring at the TV. Same clothes, same blanket pulled up, candle flames flickering on the nightstand. Live feed. My stomach dropped. Emily whispered my name, voice shaking. We both looked up at that corner. No camera, no lens. Just water-stained ceiling and cobwebs. Plain plaster. But on screen, the version of us kept watching, heads tilted the same way. I stood, walked toward the corner, and the me on TV did the same. Step for step, perfect delay. Raised my hand, he raised his. Emily stayed on the bed, frozen, and her image did too. The picture zoomed slow, or the camera moved. Impossible, but it did, tilting down to focus tighter on the bed. Then the us on screen did something we hadn't done yet. The television Emily turned her head first, looked straight up into the lens. Eyes wide, mouth open like she was about to speak. Then television me did the same, looked right into the camera, right at us. Emily grabbed my hand hard enough to hurt. On screen, the other me stood, slow and deliberate, walked to the edge of the frame, and stepped out of view. The camera stayed on Emily alone now, her image still sitting there, staring up. But the real Emily was clinging to me in the middle of the room. The screen version of her slowly turned her head, following where the other me had gone. Then the picture cut to static again. We didn't wait for more. I yanked the blanket off the bed, grabbed our bags and cooler in one arm, Emily in the other, and we ran. Door banged open against the wall, night air cold on our faces, gravel biting for our shoes as we sprinted to the car. Didn't even close the motel door behind us. Drove down the mountain with the hazards on, no headlights for the first mile because my hands were shaking too bad to think straight. Found a pull-off hours later, slept in the back seat till sunrise, then limped to the nearest town on fumes and prayer. Mechanic fixed the hose cheap, didn't ask too many questions about why we looked like we'd seen ghosts. I couldn't let it go though. A week later I started asking around online, then called the County Historical Society. Took some digging, but an old clerk remembered the Laurel Valley. Back in '73, the owner had installed one of those new closed-circuit security systems. Camera in every room, feed to a monitor in the office. Supposed to catch thieves or folks sticking out on bills. One night a traveling salesman checked into room 9 alone, paid cash, seemed down on his luck. Owner tested the new system, left it recording. Next morning the maid found him on the bed, gunshot to the head, revolver still in his hand. Camera caught everything. The moment he sat down, wrote a short note, put the gun to his temple. Owner panicked, erased most of the tape, but somehow a copy got kept or the system looped or something. Place went downhill fast after that. Closed for good in the '80s. Folks who squatted there over the years told stories about the TV in room 9 turning on by itself, showing things it shouldn't. Emily and I never drove that road again. We don't talk about it much, but sometimes when we're watching something late at night, one of us will reach for the remote first, make sure the screen's really off, and every so often I catch her glancing up at the corners of whatever room we're in, like she's checking for a lens that isn't there. I do it too, because if that tape is still playing somewhere, looped forever in the dark, I wonder what the version of us is doing now, sitting on that bed, waiting for the next folks to walk in and take our place. The mountains keep their recordings longer than we think. Some channels never quite get turned off.
It was late fall 2017, and I was hauling a load of lumber from Knoxville up to a sawmill outside Bryson City, North Carolina. Long haul, longer day. Left before dawn. Figured I'd be unloaded and headed home by supper. But the old Freightliner had other ideas. About 20 miles from town, deep in the Smokies, where the road twists like a snake trying to shed its skin, I felt the steering go heavy and heard that telltale hiss. Pulled over on a wide spot, killed the engine, and stepped out into the cold drizzle. Front left tire shredded clean, rubber hanging in strips. I had a spare, but the jack was acting up, rusted solid from too many wet seasons. By the time I gave up wrestling it, night was coming on fast, fog rolling up from the valley like smoke from a hidden fire. No cell signal, of course. Closest town still miles away, and the occasional car that passed didn't slow down for a big rig on the shoulder. I locked the cab, grabbed my overnight bag and thermos, and started walking. Figured I'd flag down the next trucker with a CB, or find a house with a landline. But the road stayed empty, just me and the sound of my boots on wet asphalt, and the wind moving restless through the hemlocks. After a mile or so, I came around a bend and saw the sign, Smoky Hollow Inn. Letters half gone, the rest faded to shadows. The place sat back from the highway in a wide gravel lot, 2 stories of faded brick and green trim, windows mostly dark. Looked like it had been grand once. Big lobby windows, a porte-cochere out front, maybe 30 rooms total. But the chain across the drive was rusted, the lot overgrown with saplings and kudzu, and every door I could see was boarded or hanging loose. Closed for years, probably. Still, there was a faint glow from the lobby, like a nightlight left on by mistake, and I needed shelter worse than I needed pride. The main doors were chained, but a side entrance near the old restaurant wing was unlocked, swollen but giving when I put my shoulder to it. Inside smelled of damp carpet and old grease, the kind of scent that clings to your clothes and reminds you how long a place has been forgotten. I swept my flashlight across a long corridor, check-in counter on the left, dusty velvet rope still marking the line, a couple of sagging armchairs facing a bricked-up fireplace. Stairs curved up to the second floor, carpet worn through to the padding. No power, but the emergency exit sign still held a weak chemical glow. I called out a few times.
Anybody here? Truck broke down. Just need a phone. But only got my echo back. Figured the glow was from a battery backup somewhere. Better than sleeping under the truck tarp. I climbed the stairs slow, testing each step, and found the hallway runner still intact, though stained and curling at the edges. Doors lined both sides, most locked or jammed, but room 1212, second from the end, opened easy. Inside was standard roadside fare. 2 doubles with chenille spreads gone gray, a dresser with a heavy old TV, bathroom with cracked tile. Mattress smelled moldy, but it was off the floor and out of the rain. I spread my jacket over the billow, kicked off my boots, and lay down fully dressed, flashlight close. The rain started again outside, drumming on the roof like fingers. Sleep came quick, road fatigue hits hard. I don't know how long I was out before the sound woke me. A steady, metallic ding, 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 patient and clear, coming from downstairs. The front desk bell, the kind you tap once for service. Ding, ding, ding. Pause. Ding, ding, ding. Over and over, same rhythm, like someone waiting to be noticed. I lay there a minute listening, thinking maybe another traveler had found the place. Maybe a squatter. But the consistency of it bothered me. Too even, too calm. I sat up, pulled my boots on, and grabbed the flashlight. The hallway was cold, breath showing in the beam. I walked quiet to the balcony railing that overlooked the lobby. Wide staircase curving down, chandelier long dark, dust thick on everything. The bell kept ringing, steady from the check-in counter below. I leaned over the rail and looked down. There he was, a man in an old bellhop uniform, red jacket with gold braid, pillbox hat tilted just so, black pants pressed sharp once upon a time. Standing straight behind the counter like he belonged there, one gloved hand resting on the bell, tapping it deliberate with the other. The lobby was empty except for him, no luggage, no guests, just moonlight coming through the high windows and painting everything silver gray. He didn't look up at first, just kept ringing, ding, 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 eyes fixed on the register in front of him. Then slow, he raised his head and looked straight up at me, face pale, almost luminous, eyes dark and steady. He stopped ringing, lifted his free hand, and tipped the brim of his cap in greeting. "Checking out soon, sir?" he asked, voice carrying clear up the stairs, polite and formal, with that soft mountain accent that rounds the edges of words. My blood went cold. I backed away from the railing, heart hammering so loud I was sure he could hear it. Didn't answer, didn't dare. Just retreated to the room, eased the door shut, and sat on the edge of the bed with the flashlight pointed at the knob. The bell started again downstairs. Ding, ding, ding. Same rhythm, patient as before. I waited for footsteps on the stairs, for a knock, but none came. Just the bell and the rain. Hours passed like that, me rigid, listening, the sound never varying, never stopping. Around 4 a.m. it finally quit. Silence felt heavier than the ringing had. I didn't sleep again. Watched the window until the sky went from black to ash to pale winter white. When full daylight came, I went downstairs cautious, boots loud on the stairs. The lobby looked different in the morning, dustier, sadder, every surface filmed gray. The counter was empty, bells sitting untouched, a faint ring of clean dust where a hand might have rested. But the man was still there, slumped now against the back wall behind the desk, half hidden by the counter's overhang. The uniform was rotting, jacket threads hanging loose, hat askew. Skin gray and drawn tight, eyes sunken but open, staring at nothing. He'd been there all along, dead for decades by the look of him, posed like he just sat down to wait. No blood I could see from the balcony, but when I forced myself closer, telling myself it was just a body, just remains, I saw the dark stains on the floorboards behind the desk, long dried to black. I left quick after that, didn't touch anything. Walked the road until a park ranger picked me up, got a tow arranged later that day. But before I left the valley, I stopped at the little library in Bryson City, asked about the Smoky Hollow. The librarian pulled out an old newspaper on microfilm, October 1965. Front page story, night bellhop named Clarence Whitaker, 22 years old, surprised by 2 robbers after closing. Fought back, took a knife to the chest, crawled behind the desk to the phone but couldn't reach it. Bled out slow while ringing the service bell with his last strength, hoping someone upstairs would hear and come down. Guests claimed they thought it was kids playing pranks. Found him at checkout time the next morning, hand still on the bell. I haven't driven that stretch at night since. Some runs I'll add hours just to take the interstate. But on quiet nights when I'm home and the house is still, I swear I hear it faint in the distance. That steady ding, ding, ding. Patient, waiting for someone to answer. Makes me wonder if Clarence ever got the help he rang for, or if he's still down there in that empty lobby, tipping his cap to every weary traveler who wanders in, asking the same question he never got to finish asking in life. The mountains don't forget their lonely ones. Some just keep ringing, hoping this time someone comes down the stairs.
It was early June 2023 when Ryan and I set out for what was supposed to be a straightforward backpacking trip in the Nantahala National Forest. We'd done it plenty of times before. 3 or 4 days on the Bartram Trail, camping rough, fishing the creeks, getting away from everything. We both needed it that year. Work had been grinding us down, and the mountains always felt like the one place that didn't ask questions. We parked at the trailhead off Wire Road just after dawn, shouldered our packs, and headed in under clear skies. The plan was to make it to a favorite campsite near the river by evening, set up the tent, crack a couple beers, and listen to the water all night. But the forecast shifted while we were out of service range. By midday, the clouds stacked up thick and dark over the ridges, and by late afternoon, the rain started. Slow at first, then hard, the kind that soaks through Gore-Tex in minutes and turns trails to mud. We pushed on longer than we should have, hoping to reach high ground, but the creek crossings got dangerous fast, water rising brown and loud. Around dusk, we admitted defeat and turned back toward the trailhead, soaked to the bone, boots heavy with water. Lightning cracked close enough to make the hair on my arms stand up. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in an hour. We knew we wouldn't make the car before full dark, and camping in that deluge with no dry wood or flat ground wasn't an option. That's when Ryan remembered the old motel. He'd seen it years ago on a drive, Twilight Motel, just off the highway a couple miles from the trailhead pull-off. Said it looked abandoned even then. Figured if nothing else, we could hunker under the eaves or break into a room for one miserable night. We came out of the woods onto the pavement after full dark, headlamps cutting weak beams through the pouring rain. The motel sat right where he remembered. Long, single-story strip facing the empty highway, sign long dead, parking lot a mess of potholes and weeds. No cars, no lights anywhere except one, a single bare bulb glowing steady behind the curtains of room 4, about a third of the way down the row. Soft yellow, unwavering, like someone had left it on decades ago, and the bill never came due. Everything else was black, windows shattered or boarded, doors hanging loose, kudzu climbing the walls like it wanted the place back. We stood under the dripping overhang a minute, water streaming off our packs, staring at that one lit window. Felt wrong, but the rain was coming sideways now, and thunder rolling constant. Shelter won. We walked the row trying doors. Most were locked or swollen shut. A couple opened into rooms that smelled like animal dens, raccoons or something worse. We stayed away from room 4 on instinct. That light felt private, like interrupting someone. Room 10, second from the end, gave easy, the lock long busted. Inside was bare but dry. Cracked linoleum floor, a sagging double bed with no mattress, just box springs, a dresser missing drawers, bathroom with a shower curtain hanging crooked. We dragged the box springs against the wall, spread our wet tent footprint and sleeping bags on it, wrung out clothes best we could, lit our little camp stove in the bathroom to warm a can of soup, steam fogging the mirror, laughed about how bad it could have been if we'd stayed on the trail. The rain hammered the roof steady, wind rattling the loose window pane. That single bulb in room 4 still glowed through the crack in its curtains, visible down the walkway if you looked. We killed our headlamps early to save batteries, lay side by side in the dark listening to the storm. Talked quiet for a while, about work, about maybe moving out west someday, then trailed off. I was almost asleep when the pacing started. Slow, deliberate footsteps overhead. Thud, drag, back and forth across the ceiling. Same path every time, from one end of the room above us to the other. Pause, turn, repeat. Steady, patient, like someone wearing a groove in the floorboards. I sat up. Ryan was already awake, staring at the ceiling. We both knew the layout. This was a single-story motel. There was no room above us, nothing but attic crawl space and roof. But the sound was clear, solid weight shifting wood. We clicked on our lights, checked the ceiling. Water-stained drywall, no access panel, no movement. The pacing kept going, unhurried, directly overhead. We told ourselves wind, branches, water in the gutters, anything. Turn the lights off again, but it didn't stop. Same rhythm, same path, all night long. Sometimes it would pause longer at one end, like the person was standing at a window looking out. Other times the steps slowed, almost hesitant. Never faster, never erratic, just that endless back and forth. We didn't sleep much, lay there rigid, listening, every creak of the building feeling connected to those footsteps that couldn't be there. Around 3 a.m., the rain eased to a steady drip, but the pacing kept on. I got up once, went to our door, cracked it open. The walkway was empty, puddles reflecting the one steady light from room 4. No movement, no shadows. Closed the door pliant, chained it again, though the chain was half rusted through. Dawn came gray and slow, mist hanging thick in the trees. The storm had passed, leaving everything dripping and clean smelling. We backed past, eager to get out, but as we stepped into the walkway with our packs, we saw room 4's door standing open a few inches, that bare bulb still burning steady inside. The pacing had stopped sometimes just before light. Curiosity got the better of us. Stupid, I know, but after a night like that, we needed to see. We walked down slow, boots loud on the wet concrete, and pushed the door wider with a stick. The room was perfect. Bed made tight, corner stucked military style, white chenille spread without a wrinkle, open
suitcase on the single chair, old-fashioned hard-shell Samsonite, clothes folded neat inside, a couple dresses from the 50s, nylon stockings rolled careful, a little hat with ale, toiletries lined up on the dresser, toothbrush, cold cream, a little bottle of perfume still half full, and on the nightstand, a note in neat handwriting on motel stationery. Will return shortly, please do not disturb. Everything looked like someone had stepped out for breakfast and meant to come right back. No dust on the surfaces, no cobwebs, and no sign of deckhands passing. The bulb in the single overhead fixture glowed warm and new, no flicker. We backed out quiet, pulled the door to where it had been, and walked fast to the car without talking. Drove to the first diner we found outside Andrew's, ordered coffee and eggs we barely tasted. The waitress noticed we were shaken, asked if we were okay. Ryan told her about the motel, the light, the room. She went still, wiped her hands slow on her apron, said the Twilight closed in 58 after a woman checked in alone. Paid cash for a full week, said she was meeting someone. Nice lady, well-dressed, out-of-towner. Left that note on the nightstand and went out one morning, never came back. Search parties, police, everything, nothing. Car still in the lot a month later. Owner finally locked the room and left it, light burning, figuring she turned up. Place went bankrupt soon after. Folks say on stormy nights that light comes back on, and you can hear her walking the floor, waiting for whoever never showed. We nodded, paid, and drove home. Never went back to that part of the Nantahala. Some nights when it's raining hard and I'm up late, I think about room 4. Bulb still glowing patient through the cracked curtains. Bed still made, suitcase still open. And I wonder if she's pacing again, slow and steady, listening for footsteps that aren't ours. Wonder if she heard us that night, 2 strangers in the room next door, and kept walking anyway. The mountains give you shelter when you need it, but sometimes they ask you to carry something away with you. I still hear those footsteps sometimes, soft overhead when there's nothing above me but ceiling. Waiting, always waiting, for a door that never opens.
It was the summer of 2025, one of those stretches where the heat sits heavy in the lowlands, and the only relief is up in the mountains. I'd been chasing abandoned places for a couple years by then. Old mills, forgotten schools, roadside motels that time had walked away from. Something about the quiet, the way nature starts taking everything back, always drew me in. I'd spend nights in them when I could, camera ready for that perfect dawn light cutting through broken windows. No trespassing signs never stopped me. Most folks up there understand a man needs to see what's been left behind. That particular trip took me into southwestern Virginia, following a tip from an online forum about the Deerfield Motor Lodge. Place had been closed since the early 80s, tucked off a winding county road where the hollers run deep and the oaks crowd close. Photos online showed it half swallowed by kudzu, the sign out front hanging by one chain, neon tubes long shattered. Perfect. I got there late afternoon, sun already dipping behind the ridge, painting everything gold and long shadowed. The lodge was a single L-shaped row of 12 rooms, office at the elbow, pool out back filled with black water and leaves. Gravel lot empty except for a rusted dumpster tipped on its side. No power lines running in, windows dark or boarded, doors hanging loose like tired jaws. I parked behind the building where the Jeep wouldn't be seen from the road, grabbed my pack and camera bag and started walking the units. Most smelled of rot and animal musk, mattresses gone or chewed through, floors littered with broken glass and old beer cans from kids who'd partied there. Room 6, third from the end, was better. Door still on its hinges, window cracked but intact, carpet damp but not soaked. Inside was standard 70s decay, wood-paneled walls, a double bed with a bare mattress, dresser missing its mirror, and on the nightstand an old rotary phone, beige plastic yellowed with age. The cord had been cut clean years ago, wires frayed and dangling. I smiled at that, perfect detail for a shot. Set up my sleeping bag on the mattress, ate a cold supper of jerky and an apple, and spent the evening photographing details, peeling wallpaper flowers, the phone's dusty dial, sunlight slanting through the bathroom door onto cracked tile. Night came quick in that hollow, no moon, just thick clouds and the constant drone of katydids. I lay in the dark listening to the building settle, creaks and groans, water dripping somewhere steady. The air cooled fast, mist seeping under the door. I drifted in and out, camera close in case I woke early for blue hour shots. Around 3 a.m. the ringing started. Old mechanical, burring, clear and insistent, right there on the nightstand. I came awake slow, confused, thinking maybe I dreamed it, but it rang again, burring, steady, like someone letting it go full cycles. The phone sat dark and dead, cord severed, no power in the building at all, yet the bell inside it hammered away. My skin prickled. I sat up, heart already picking up, and stared at the thing. It rang a third time longer. Stupid instinct took over. I reached out and lifted the receiver, put it to my ear like it was 1975 and everything worked. Static at first, faint, then a woman's voice, shaky and low. "Hello, is this room 7? Breath catching like she was trying to stay quiet. I froze, mouth dry. "No," I managed, voice rough from sleep. "This is room 6. You've got the wrong..." She cut me off, whisper urgent now. "No, I'm in room 7. There's someone at the door."
I think he's trying to get in. Scratching sounds in the background, faint but clear. Fingernails on wood, slow. Then a thud, soft, against a door. My stomach dropped. Listen, I said. I'm right next door. I'll come help. Stay on the line. But she was already breathing faster. Please. He's knocking now. Help me. The line crackled, popped once like a bad connection. Then her voice again, smaller. He's inside. A muffled cry, cut short. Then dead silence.
I dropped the receiver, grabbed my flashlight, and bolted for the door. Chain was off, hadn't bothered with it earlier, and I burst into the hallway. The air outside the room felt colder, heavier. Room 7's door, right next to mine, stood wide open, pitch black inside. No light, no movement, just that gaping rectangle swallowing the beam of my flashlight. "Hello?" I called, voice shaking worse than I wanted. "Ma'am? You okay?" Nothing. I stepped closer, swept the light across the threshold. Same layout as my room. Bed, dresser, bathroom door ajar, but empty. Mattress bare, floor scattered with old leaves, dust thick on everything. No woman, no intruder, no sign anyone had been there in decades. The phone on that nightstand sat cordless too, receiver off the hook, dangling. I backed away slow, pulled my own door shut, and sat on the bed with the light pointed at it till morning. Dawn came gray and misty. I packed fast, didn't linger for photos. Drove down the road to the nearest gas station, little place with a diner counter and a couple locals nursing coffee. Ordered a cup I didn't drink and asked the older woman behind the register if she knew about the Deerfield. She went still, glanced at the cook who suddenly found the grill fascinating. Then she told me. Back in '81, a woman checked in late, traveling alone, out of state plates, said her husband was meeting her later. Took room 7, paid cash. Night clerk was off, so she let herself in. Sometime after midnight, a man forced the door. Drifter, they think, seen hanging around the vending machines earlier. Assaulted her, strangled her with the phone cord when she fought back. She managed to dial the front desk once, got through long enough to whisper for help before he yanked the cord from the wall. Clerk called the police, but by the time they arrived, she was gone. Killer too, never caught. Place started failing after that. Hard to rent the room next to where it happened. Closed a couple years later. The woman sighed, refilled the local's cup without asking. Said folks who stayed there since, squatters mostly, talk about the phone in room 6 ringing in the night. Same call every time. Woman asking if it's room 7, saying someone's trying to get in. Then the plea for help. Some hang up quick. Some go look, find room 7 empty. A few swear they've heard scratching at the door from inside or a muffled thump, but no one's ever found anything. Just that desperate voice on a deadline. I thanked her, left the coffee untouched, and drove straight out of the county. Haven't been back to that part of Virginia since. But some nights when the house is quiet and I'm half asleep, I swear the old rotary in my mind starts ringing. Ba-ring, ba-ring. Patient, waiting for me to pick up. Makes me wonder if she ever got the help she called for, or if she's still there in the dark of room 7, dialing the only number she could reach, hoping this time someone comes quick enough. And I wonder what would have happened if I'd stepped inside that open door instead of backing away. The mountains keep their unfinished calls forever, I reckon. Some lines never really get cut.